Welcome, everyone, to this explainer. Okay, think of today's session as a professional development meeting where we're basically going to hit the reset button on how we approach our classrooms. Instead of agonizing over what we are told to teach, we're going to completely refocus on who is actually the designing. And spoiler alert, it's you. Today, we're diving into exactly how you, the teacher, are the ultimate curriculum designer. Let's kick things off with a pretty provocative question. It's one that really challenges those usual top-down administrative directives we're all, frankly, a little too used to. I mean, think about it for a second. When a shiny new syllabus gets handed down from the district or the administration, does it actually fit the specific, unique kids sitting right in front of you? Honestly, it usually doesn't. So who really knows what those students need? You do.
So here's our quick roadmap for today's session. We'll start by rethinking curriculum design, then look at the idea of the grassroots teacher, break down 7 actionable steps you can actually use, and finally, look at how we evaluate student-centered success.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, rethinking curriculum design and moving away from those top-down directives. Now, you might be thinking this whole radical grassroots shift is just some trendy new educational fad, but actually, think again. The pioneering educator Hilda Taba introduced this exact concept way back in 1962. It was a massive, groundbreaking modification to these super rigid theories of her time, and honestly, it remains incredibly relevant for our lesson planning today. To put this in perspective, for decades, Ralph Tyler's traditional model totally ruled the classroom. It was deductive, top-down, and very society-centered. Basically, it started with these massive institutional goals that eventually just trickled down to you. But Hilda Taba, she completely flipped the script. Her model is inductive, bottom-up, and entirely student-centered. Instead of starting at the district office, it begins right where you are, with the specific needs of your actual learners, building upward toward the general design.
So what does inductive logic actually mean for us when we're standing at the whiteboard? Well, it's a naturalistic approach. It literally means we look at the specific students sitting in our room first. We diagnose what they need, we look at the gaps they have, and we build the curriculum upward from there, rather than just blindly following a generic syllabus handed down from above. You start with the absolute reality of your classroom.
Okay, moving on to section 2. Let's talk about the grassroots teacher and why you are the true architect here.
Taba had this fantastic quote: "Teachers are the most realistic and important factor in curriculum building." And it makes perfect sense, right? Because you are the one closest to the classroom environment. You see the daily struggles, you witness those amazing light bulb moments, and you understand the unique dynamics of your kids. Taba argued fiercely that the people who actually implement the curriculum absolutely must be the ones who design it. And listen, this isn't just high-level theory. This grassroots system literally empowers you. It intentionally shifts the responsibility away from administrators and places it directly into your hands. Why is that a game changer? Because doing so creates a purposeful, progressive educational instrument. It ensures your curriculum is actually responsive to contemporary society and, more importantly, to the individual student. It replaces those distant, out-of-touch directives with the actual requirements of your learners. It creates an environment where students can discover principles efficiently on their own terms. So how do we actually do this? Let's dive into section 3, the 7 actionable steps. Think of this as your practical playbook for lesson design. Taba outlines a really strict, highly logical 7-step sequence. Here in phase 1, the focus is entirely on the content. Step 1 is where the magic starts. Diagnosis of needs. You figure out exactly what your specific students lack. From there, step 2 is formulating objectives to address those exact specific gaps. Step 3 is selecting valid, significant subject matter that actually aligns with those goals. And step 4 is organizing that content. So you aren't just opening a textbook to chapter 1. You're systematically planning the subject matter based on your own initial diagnosis. Now let's see how this flows right into phase 2, designing the experience. Once your content is locked in, you shift to the how. Step 5 is selecting the learning experiences, meaning your actual instructional methods. Step 6 is organizing those activities into a cohesive, engaging sequence. And finally, step 7 is evaluation. This entire phase is where perfectly planned content from phase 1 meets the messy, beautiful, everyday reality of your classroom instruction. To make this hyper-practical for your lesson prep this week, we can map Taba's first 4 steps directly into tangible classroom tasks. For instance, when you're organizing content, You don't just arrange it chronologically because the book says so. No, you sequence and categorize it based specifically on your students' maturity, what they're actually interested in right now, and their current level of understanding. That is grassroots logic in full action.
And as we round out the process with Phase 2, notice how the selection and organization of activities in Steps 5 and 6 are deliberately designed to help students build on their prior learning. You are sequencing activities so they can discover the underlying principles efficiently, rather than just rotely memorizing a bunch of facts for a test. You're not just delivering a lecture, you are curating an experience.
Which brings us to our final section, evaluating student-centered success, or basically measuring what actually matters.
Now, it's pretty important to frame Taba's model accurately within educational theory. A lot of modern interpretations love to add these continuous, ongoing feedback loops, but Taba originally designed her model as a linear, finalized sequence that specifically stops at evaluation. This is what makes it different from something like Wheeler's cyclical model, which just constantly loops back on itself. For Taba, Step 7 is a definitive, hard checkpoint to determine if those highly specific, customized objectives you set way back in Step 2 were actually accomplished.
But here's the real kicker, and what you should absolutely take away from this. Evaluation in Taba's truly student-centered model isn't just about handing out a standardized test and a grade. It genuinely requires active input from both you and your students. It's a shared assessment. You're figuring out together if the educational objectives were met, which reinforces that bottom-up inductive philosophy all the way through to the very end of the lesson.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a vital question to chew on as you head back to your classrooms. Knowing that Taba's model proves you, the teacher, are the single most critical, realistic factor in education, how are you going to apply these 7 grassroots steps in your lesson planning tomorrow? The power to design is quite literally in your hands, so use it.